Have you been looking to upgrade your dresser to something a little nicer? Maybe you're going for a rustic look, or maybe if you're like me, you got some guns and you need a place to store them. Well, if any of those apply to you, then let me show you this bootless craft build that you might be interested in watching, where we build this dresser, 6 drawers, and a hidden gun cabinet to boot. Stay tuned. First thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be building the drawers themselves. When I built her dresser, I built the frame first and then the drawers, and it ended up causing some issues because the frame wasn't exactly perfect, and so not all the drawers were the exact same size, so now each drawer can only go in one specific slot. Not the end of the world because you're not usually taking your drawers out most of the time, but I wanted to try building the drawers first and build all the drawers the exact same size and see if I can get the dresser to fit nicely where every drawer can fit into any slot, since they're all going to be exactly the same drawer size. So that's the plan. I'm going to start with building the drawers. Now, I started by ripping the plywood into more manageable sections so that I could then make all the cuts that I needed to build the drawers on my table saw. So now that I've got my piece cut to a more manageable size for a single person, I'm going to take it, put it on a table saw, and I'm going to cut it into the actual lengths that I'm looking for. It'll be my heights of my drawers, which I'm shooting for a 6-inch side on the drawers. It'll actually be probably a little less than that because I'm going to recess into the bottom panel, but we'll get to that later on. Alright, so I've cut all my plywood for all the sides of my drawers. Next, I'm going to be cutting it to the appropriate lengths and widths for those drawers. And then afterwards, after we cut it to the appropriate lengths, I'm going to actually router a small 1/4-inch groove at the bottom end of this that is actually where the bottom of the drawer is going to sit. So now that we have our bottom cut and our sides cut, I'm going to assemble one of our drawers. We're going to be using wood glue on all the joints, especially in this groove where the bottom is going to attach to all 4 sides. And then we're going to be using an air nailer, some 18 gauge nails. It could be nice to use a pin nailer, but I don't have a pin nailer currently, so we're going to be using this one with the 18 gauge nails to connect all of the sides together. noticed while I was doing the second drawer that the middles of the front and backs of the drawers were actually popping out. The nails were holding the ends, but the middle was actually popping out. So I went ahead and slapped clamps on each of these drawers before they're dried. Alright, so we've got all the drawers built and assembled. Now what we're going to be doing is building the actual frame of the dresser that the drawers are going to fit into. Now I did a little math. Each of my drawers is 6 inches tall. Got 6 of them. A half-inch gap both above and below the drawer just to make sure it doesn't catch anything. I could do a little less than a half inch, but I decided I'm going to do a half inch. So that's 7 inches total for each drawer slot. Plus I'm going to put a 2-inch spacer in between the drawer slots so that the drawer fronts actually have something to butt up against on the top and bottom of them. So those 2-inch spacers plus 2 inches on the bottom and 2 inches on the top means I'm going to need to make this thing 56 inches tall. And then our width is going to be determined by our drawer. Here's one of our drawers that we built. Our width is going to be the width of the drawer plus 1 inch. Now the reason that interior width of the dresser is going to be that is because when you put the 2 drawer slides that I bought, mount them on, these combined together are 1 inch in width. So half inch on each side, 1 inch total, so that'll give us the interior dimension. So let's get started building the frame. After building the frame for the main part of the dresser, I then went on to assemble what was going to become the frame for my hidden gun cabinet. With both the gun cabinet and the main body of the dresser frame completed, I then moved on to do the front fascia. I decided to use 1.5 inches wide oak strips to form the fascia that would be the struts both on the sides, the tops, the bottoms, and in between each of the 6 drawers. In order to help build the frame appropriately, I decided to lay the dresser body down on its backside and lay out the pieces and measure them directly on the dresser how they would lay. I assembled all of the oak front face pieces together using pocket screws first, and then once I had them all assembled together, I laid them out on the front of the dresser and nailed them in place using a nailer. So what I made was, I want this fascia top piece on the bottom shelf or bottom drawer is 1.5 inches above the actual interior of the dresser. So I went ahead and made 2-inch spacers that I'm going to use for my setup, and that'll leave 1/4 inch sticking above, not a quarter, a 1/2 inch sticking above the fascia piece, which will put my drawer slide exactly a 1/2 inch above the fascia piece. That allows me to mount the interior part of the drawer slide, this part that actually goes on the drawer itself, allows me to mount this 1 inch up from the bottom of my drawer, which is what I want to do, and then it'll still leave that 1/2 inch gap. After finishing up the drawer fronts, it was time to move on to the sides. I was going to use pallets just like I had used for the drawer fronts to do both the sides, but in order to make my cabinet door work properly, I had to first build a plywood backer that all the pallet pieces would be nailed to. I decided to use European-style concealed hinges to ensure that nobody would notice the hinges of the hidden door for the gun cabinet. So this is a herringbone pattern. If you ever want to do a herringbone pattern on a cabinet door, a wall, a floor, anything, the only thing that really is hard and you got to make sure you get right is the first 2 boards. I put these 2 boards first. Now what you want to do is you want to mark a center line on whatever pieces you're backing, the wall, the floor, for this case the cabinet door, and then you want the center of this board and this board, the first 2 boards you lay, you want to have a line running between those 2 centers, and that has to be perfectly in line with your line on your back piece. So if you see, I throw this up here, put it in line with my 2 pieces, and you can see it's perfectly in line with my cabinet piece. Once you get those 2 pieces in line and placed down, you just continue alternating the pattern up and down from your centerpiece. And that gets you the herringbone pattern. the sides now done, it was time to move on to everybody's favorite part of the woodworking process. Sanding, more sanding, and a little bit more sanding, and then finally staining and finishing the workpiece. If you're working on a large or complex piece of furniture, spraying the stain or finish is one of the easiest and fastest methods to make sure you get an even coat all over the surface. Now, a lot of your work pieces, you can take them and do a couple coats of varnish and then just call it done and be happy with it. If you really want to go for that professional look and take your piece to the next level, you're going to want to do a process that they call rubbing out the finish. Now, what that process entails is after you've applied at least probably 6 or 7 coats of finish so that you have a good barrier built up on top of the surface of the wood, you're going to want to let that dry for at least 24 hours, and then you're going to want to take some very high grit, I used 2000 grit sandpaper, and a block so that you can get it nice and flat. You're going to use a sanding block that you're going to wrap the 2000 grit sandpaper around, get the surface lightly wet, and then just sand everything lightly to really get rid of any dust particles, air pockets, bubbles, any of that orange peel kind of feel you can sometimes get when you're spray and finish. If you do this, it'll not only increase the smoothness of the overall workpiece, but it'll also add in a really nice gloss shine to it. With finish applied to the full body of the dresser, it was time to move on to installing my drawer pulls. I decided to design my own custom drawer pulls because I was looking for something a little more rustic, and I decided to go with using some spent 4570 lever action casings. For the interior of the gun cabinet, I wanted to take the extra precaution to make sure nothing damaged or scratched any of my guns. So I used some large all-purpose contact cement and a fleece fabric as a liner to line the whole interior of the gun cabinet to make sure no wood surfaces were exposed that could damage any of my rifles. Final piece of the dresser was the top. It took me a little longer than I had hoped for to get the wood that I was looking for the top. I ended up using nice solid oak that I planed down to 3/4 of an inch. I then joined all of the boards together using biscuit joints and gluing them up and clamping. Then I've got 6 clamps on the outside, 3 on each side, with boards sandwiched in between on either side of the board. And their purpose is to basically hold the boards as flat as we can get them close together. This piece is too wide for me to plane again to get all these surfaces perfectly level. So that's going to have to be done by sanding if there's any unevenness. So we want to get them as close to perfect as we can. And we're doing that by running these 2 runners on the sides and clamping them down for us to squeeze and level out these boards. Finally, sanded and finished just as I had done the rest of the dresser. And once it was all done, I mounted it together. So I just finished rubbing out the finish on the dresser top. Normally I would do this in the garage for the final install, but I had already moved the dresser inside, so I'm actually going to install it while it's inside in the bedroom. But I'm going to be using 1.75" screws, so they should be just the right size to go through these top 2x3s, support pieces, and into the dresser top without actually having a risk of popping through and showing on top surface of the dresser top. Hope you enjoyed watching our dresser gun cabinet build. We've got 6 drawers for all your needs, clothing, and then hidden gun cabinet on the side. May look to expand upon the gun cabinet in the future, maybe add some more mounts onto the door, but we're good for now. And if you did enjoy the video, please like or comment and let us know. We appreciate hearing feedback from you guys. And I hope you'll stick around for all our future Bootless Craft builds. Thank you. Have a great day.